Welcome to the 5 Books, where each week we talk with a Jewish author about 5 books that are near and dear to them. My name is Tali Rosenblatt Cohen, and today, ahead of Thanksgiving, we're doing something a little different. I'll be talking with Jake Cohen about the foods that impacted his identity and about his new cookbook, Dinner Party Animal.
To choose to throw a dinner party is such an act of self-care, and to really search for a book that can help you with that ritual, to me, is really like the meaning of like a self-help book.
Jake Cohen is the New York Times bestselling author of the cookbooks Jewish and I Could Nosh, and star of A&E's Jake Makes It Easy. Jake and his recipes have been featured on Rachael Ray, The Drew Barrymore Show, Good Morning America, The Food Network, and in the New York Times, among many others. When he's not posting challah-braiding videos and recipes, he's eating and gallivanting around New York City. In this episode, we'll hear why it drives Jake crazy to be asked when he's going to branch out from Jewish food.
I think it's because you don't really see that happening to chefs or writers from any other culture. So for me, it was really just this idea like everything I do is going to be Jewish.
And he'll tell us the story of how he learned to make kubbeh early one morning in Jerusalem.
I woke up at 6:30 in the morning and walked to the shuk. It's right on the side of Machne Yehuda in Jerusalem. And I was like, I just want to come and see you roll the kubbeh. And I did. And it was just this really mind-boggling experience because it expanded my idea of Jewish food, my idea of how Jews eat around the world.
All that and more coming up next. So Jake, welcome to the 5 Books. I'm so excited to have you here, and your work has brought so much joy and Jewish joy into kitchens everywhere, and it's just a real treat to sit down with you. So thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
For you, food and Jewish identity are so deeply connected. I'm curious when you first saw that connection, that your cooking career could be a place of Jewish expression.
You know, I think when I was really kind of starting in my career, it was pretty evident that everyone has kind of a unique voice, perspective on food, and really it's typically through family, it's through experience, it's through anecdotes. And for myself, when I thought about my own family, it's not like I grew up with this mother who did these elaborate home-cooked meals. It was really something where around the Jewish holidays were these moments in which my whole family would stop and just throw these feasts. And it was all about abundance and gathering and hospitality in a way that wasn't really present in my day-to-day. And so there was something really magical about that when I started to kind of really think about like what's going to be my perspective within the food world. I just knew it had to be because it just came so easily.
So I know you get asked, when are you going to branch out from Jewish food? So tell me your rant. Why does that question drive you crazy?
You know, I think it's because you don't really see that happening to chefs or writers from any other culture. It's something that's so commonly reserved for Jewish cooking, so commonly reserved for our food, because there is this kind of like, I don't know, idea that it's lesser. It's either it's less flashy, it's less mainstream, it's less desirable, even though there's so many of these dishes that are so integral to the fabric of American cooking and the New York food scene. So for me, it was really just this idea like everything I do is going to be Jewish. So even if it's inherently Jewish, like my first 2 books, or not inherently Jewish like my new book, it's still written by me, so there's going to be so much Judaism injected into everything I do. And to think that I'm going to, I don't know, go into the closet about being a Jew and not have it reflected in my work in the same way that, like, me being gay, it's not like I hide that in my work. All I can do is show food through the lens of how I make it, which is so rooted in connection, so rooted in family, so rooted in community, so rooted in everything that is me.
Hey, I wanted to tell you about a new podcast I've been listening to that I think you'll love called Thoughts and Prayers from the Shalom Hartman Institute. It's hosted by Jessica Fisher, and it's a moving exploration of Jewish prayer and why it matters in modern life. Each episode weaves together personal stories, ancient texts, and conversations with thinkers and rabbis like Ilana Steinhain, Yessi Klein Halevi, Lauren Holtzblatt, and Yehuda Kurtzer, and more. They're wrestling with what it means to pray in our modern world. It's beautifully produced, deeply personal, and full of the kinds of questions that stay with you long after you've listened. If you're curious about spirituality, community, or what prayer means today, check out Thoughts and Prayers from the Shalom Hartman Institute, available wherever you get your podcasts. Chapter 1: A Jewish Food from Childhood. Passover at Aunt Susie's with her brisket and her version of Joan Nathan's apricot chicken. Tell us a little bit about how you first got into cooking, what drew you to food as more than a hobby.
You know, it was just, there was no other option. The second I got into it, second I started watching Food Network, the second I started cooking in high school, I knew it was this or nothing. I really knew that this was the only thing I wanted to do and was the only thing I was gonna do. And so that's what I did. And I think I only applied to one college, and that was the Culinary Institute of America. I just didn't give myself any other option. And so there was really like that drive pushed me, and it still pushes me to this day.
And what was the turning point where cooking became this like celebrity chef version of it with books and TV and a huge social media following?
I mean, it's always been part of the goal. Like, this was always the goal. This was never like, oh my God, it just happened. Like, no, this was the plan. My first book came out during the pandemic at a time when everyone was cooking. Everyone was home, and it was amazing. My second book similarly came out then, but it also actually, it came out right before October 7th, and having something that allowed the Jewish community to come together and not have it be focused on politics or war, but just on Jewish culture and coming together as a community was huge. And now I have a book that's coming out that's also the most mainstream book I've done. And it's at a time in which we have changed as a society in terms of what we're doing, whether in the balance of cooking versus going out, all of that. And to have this be a really fun journey for me to take, where I'm doing shows with my friends and I'm shooting videos with my friends and I'm going on book tour with my friends. Like, I'm really focusing on making this fun.
Tell me a little bit about your life Jewishly growing up. What was your household like Jewishly?
It was super secular. I grew up in Queens, and it was very much like a scene out of The Nanny, where it was nonstop eating and commenting on weight and food and eating and bickering. And it was just that. The high holidays were the moments in which we really were Jewish. We didn't do Shabbat. I did go to Hebrew school twice a week until my bar mitzvah. And that was about it. I would say it's like my Jewish identity evolved so much more in my 20s as an adult. Where I am now as a practicing Jew looks very different than my childhood in a way that I'm incredibly grateful for, because it's something that I came to terms with and I wanted for myself.
I want to hear more about that for sure. But first, tell us about Passover at Aunt Susie's.
Yeah, so like that was the time when all hell broke loose and the entire family got together in her apartment in Bay Terrace in Queens, and she would delegate some things, but she made the main things, which were like the matzo ball soup, and she would make the best brisket. It's like kind of the basis of most of my brisket recipes, which is like rich and full of red wine and tomato and lots of bay leaf. But then there was this other, she always would make apricot chicken, which was this like great recipe of chicken stuffed with matzo farfel and baked covered in apricot jam. And I always thought it was just like her recipe. And then when I was much older, I have become very close with Joan Nathan, who's one of like the most iconic Jewish cookbook authors, and she wrote Jewish Cooking in America. And I was telling her about this recipe, and she goes, no, that's my recipe. That's from Jewish Cooking in America. And needless to say, I asked Susie, and it was a Joan Nathan recipe that she had adapted, that she made every year. And so to have that kind of like full circle moment was really special.
That's very sweet. And Aunt Susie makes it into a bunch of your cookbooks with some of her other recipes too. You've written a little bit about your grandparents having been survivors, right? And
my grandmother, yeah.
And what was her story?
So my grandmother was a hidden child in Belgium. She was hidden by nuns while her parents were at a work camp in the north of France. And my grandfather was in hiding with his mother, also in Belgium, while his father was in a work camp in the south of France, which everyone's just listening. But on my wall, these are images that another one of the prisoners had drawn that he smuggled out of the camps when he escaped.
Wow. That's amazing. Were those stories that you heard growing up?
No, it wasn't until I was much older and really started to ask. We always knew like the very little, we knew as little as possible. And then once I started asking, it kind of came out. And we have luckily some beautiful transcripts of the stories of what happened.
Yeah. I know you've written about reconnecting with traditions that your parents' generation had lost. What has that meant to you?
I really want to say that I'm grateful that I got to do it on my own time and of my own decision, where it wasn't something that was kind of forced onto me, but something that I chose. And I do think that in a lot of identity, especially when it comes to Judaism, it is a choice. Every day you choose to practice Judaism. And obviously, for so many cultures, you are born into it ethnically, and you will always ethnically be part of that community. But with Judaism, like it requires a practice, and the practice looks different. And I'm not saying that I practice the same way as other practicing Jews. And a lot of Jews would look at the way that I practice and have opinions, and that's not the point. The point is that I have a lot of intention towards this identity and the ritual that's tied to it, and I love that, especially through the lens of food.
And how did you come to that in your 20s?
I just wanted community. I think I was craving community, and we have this inheritance of ritual, all of which that is tied to food, that really can help you find how to extend gratitude, be present, build community, find deeper connection to yourself, and even create balance in your life around work versus rest. I wanted to make it my own and how it could be as sustainable as possible to work for my life. So it wasn't something that I felt like was a burden and something I had to do. I wanted to be a joy. I wanted to be the best thing that I could have ever chosen to welcome into my life.
Shabbat has been such a big piece of that for you as an adult, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of how you came to Shabbat.
You know, I think it is the same deal. When I was looking for those things, Shabbat kept becoming like the thing that really tied everything I wanted to do together. All of those things I said are really all wrapped up in Shabbat. It's a moment you get to unplug, be present with those you love over a meal. It is intentional. It is weekly. It is a focus on yourself and abundance and community that I started doing, and it was just addictive because I just saw how much it nourished my soul.
I mean, that community aspect is such a big part of your new book, right? Bringing people together. And
yeah. A huge part in this new book is I wanted to have portraits of all my friends and family that were present as I was cooking these meals, a lot of which were served at Shabbats, but really they were also served at every occasion. And I think you can both embody the Jewish value of Shabbat and then take it into your daily life.
Chapter 2, A Jewish Food from Adulthood, Eating Kubbeh at the restaurant Azura in Jerusalem.
When you grow up in New York, Ashkenazi food really is the center of our sphere of understanding when it comes to Jewish food. And I was in Israel, and I was on this trip, and I met this food writer through a mutual friend, and she was like, I want to take you to my favorite restaurant. And she brought me to this restaurant called Azura, which is this Kurdish spot in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. And it was one of the most incredible meals ever. And they just have these giant pots over kerosene burners. And you're just like, I want some of that. And I want some of that. And I want some of that. And they make such incredible kubbeh, which is this Kurdish Iraqi dumpling, served in soup. And it's typically this semolina dough that's stuffed with meat and then simmered in soup. Sometimes it could be fried. But one of the most popular ones is kubbeh selik or kubbeh shwanda or kubbeh adom. They're all are interchangeable terms for the red kubbeh, which is when it's done in a beet soup that's sweet and sour. And it was just so hearty, and it just like, you can feel it just warm yourself from the inside out. And I had such a crazy reaction to the meal that my friend, who's this food writer, connected me with the owner. I was on my way to Jerusalem, and then I woke up at 6:30 in the morning and walked to the shuk. It's right on the side of Machne Yehuda in Jerusalem. And I was like, I just want to come and see you roll the kubbeh. And I did. And it was just this really mind-boggling experience, because it expanded, this whole trip expanded my idea of Jewish food, my idea of how Jews eat around the world. And it got me really, really invested in learning about Mizrahic and Sephardic Jewish food in the same passion that I felt about Ashkenazi.
Was this before you wrote your first book?
It was. And it helped impact everything. And it helps me really make sure that I want Jews from all communities to be able to see themselves in my work. And that's a huge part of the stories I tell.
Was there anything that you learned about Sephardi food or culture that you feel like others might not know?
I think really what it is much like I think we as a society talk about Ashkenazi food in a very simplistic way, not remembering that we're talking about a group of people that are spanning a continent of Eastern Europe. And there's a lot of variation depending if you were German Ashkenazi versus Lithuanian Ashkenazi versus Southern Polish Ashkenazi versus Ukrainian Ashkenazi. And we kind of just like smashed it all down into one flat plane. And it's kind of the opposite with like Mizrahic food, which is like of the Middle East and the Levant, where so much of it is like, all right, let's kind of see like, whoa, how does this apply to like current drawn borders when it's so much more complicated and messy than that? And I kind of love that, because there are all these shared dishes across countries that have similar ancestral dishes that have then like slowly begun to shift. And my favorite one of it is there's the dish that's probably most commonly known is Indian jalebi, which is like the fried funnel cake that's then soaked in syrup. And typically it's like colored with saffron, and it's so good. And it's incredibly well known as a part of Indian culture. That being said, there's also zulbia, which is the Persian version. And I think I forget the Arabic word for the Iraqi version, because this was a dish that was created when Iran, Iraq, and India were all part of the Persian Empire. And so it's not as simple of it comes from one of these places. I don't think we actually know, like with true conviction, where exactly it is from. And yet now it is part of all of these cultures. And people get very angry because I get it a lot in the comments when I'll see a Persian chef posting it around time for Hanukkah, and you'll have people from another culture being like, why are you stealing our food? It's not that simple. And so my favorite thing is to kind of dive into food ways. And I think people need to get that it's actually the things that kind of connect us. And as food evolves from community to community, especially like once all these communities came to America, that I think is the most fascinating thing.
Yeah, and there's so many overlapping kinds of foods. Like every culture is going to have its dumpling.
Yeah.
Are there recipes that have been passed down that you still feel connected to?
So I have this recipe box on my desk from my great grandmother, and it's all note cards that she had with recipes scribbled on them. And they are a huge part of the recipes I make. I go through it and I find things and I find inspiration and I bring them back from the dead into something that can be part of my culinary lexicon.
Chapter 3, A Food That Changed Your Worldview. The chocolate coulant created by Dominique Ansel at Danielle in New York.
So my first restaurant job was at Danielle Boulud's, at the time 3 Michelin star restaurant on the Upper East Side. And it was so incredible. And this was right at the time Dominique Ansel, who was like the incredible genius pastry chef who invented the cronut, had just left to go open his own bakery. But we still had this item on the menu that he created, which was a chocolate coulant. It was this little like cylindrical pastry, and it was a brownie base that was wrapped in a cylinder of chocolate sablé, so like a crunchy chocolate cookie. And then it was filled up with some molten chocolate cake, and then a fleur-de-sel caramel, and then more molten chocolate cake, and then baked. And it was the best dessert I've ever had in my life. It was one of those things where it was like a ratatouille moment for me. It is really what pushed me of understanding that I have such a sweet tooth, and no matter how much I love to cook, I find baking so incredibly fascinating, so incredibly beautiful, so incredibly important to the way that we feed those we love. I think that it was what kicked me off on my baking journey, because I started going home and being like, all right, I gotta try to make this. And from there, it's like I'm a formally trained chef, I'm a completely self-taught baker. And that I love. That journey kind of came about.
The word that comes to mind for me is apachka. Do you know the word apachka?
Yeah.
It's like
yeah, exactly.
So many different steps, so intricate.
Exactly.
Chapter 4, A Restaurant You're Excited About. Hani's Bakery in the East Village of New York City.
I'm obsessed with Hani's. It is this bakery in the East Village from my friends Miro and Shilpo Skokovich. Miro was the pastry chef at Gramercy Tavern and then went to open this bakery that's named after his mother. It's the best. It's the best pastries. It's the best sandwiches. It's where I go on dates. It's where I go for a meeting. Sometimes I'll leave the club at like 8 in the morning and I'll take some friends straight to Hani's. Everything about it is so special.
What is it about it that you think makes it so special?
It's attention to detail. It's so much of it is rooted in coziness and American comfort classics, but just done in slightly new ways and with such high attention to detail. And when you have that, you can't go wrong.
Chapter 5, The Author's Latest Cookbook, Dinner Party Animal by Jake Cohen. So I love that you call this a self-help cookbook.
Yeah.
Tell me what that means to you.
So for me, really, when I look at why people buy my books or cookbooks in general, it's to hone a craft, to learn how to cook. And you could really buy any book and learn recipes. But to choose a book that's focused on dinner parties, it means that you have a desire to shift your time, energy, and tension into building community and gathering those you love over a meal. To choose to throw a dinner party is such an act of self-care, and to really search for a book that can help you with that ritual, to me, is really like the meaning of like a self-help book.
What do you feel like you've gained from this like practice of hospitality?
Everything. Like my entire life has changed. I have found the deepest connections. I have found happiness. Really, that's what I think it is. I think I found true joy, and I found what is the meaning of life to me is not success. It's not money. It's community. And throwing dinner parties is how I achieve that. That's the thing that I wish upon everyone. This is a book that has like 16 menus, each with grocery lists and timelines. And so if you just want to have your hand held and let me tell you everything to do, God bless. This book is for you. You got it. If you want to take this and just find inspiration and cook one recipe that you really love and be like, ooh, let me do this and that. It's like, Also, go with God. I'm all for it.
It's so nice to have the guesswork taken out. What are the components for you when you're hosting a dinner party, aside from the food, that you're paying attention to?
The invitations. It's about who am I curating at the table. The food can be really great, but if everyone hates each other, what are you doing? So a huge part is like, what's the intention of this gathering? And sometimes it starts with like, I miss these two people. I want to see them. I want to create an experience for them to show them that I love them and I miss them. And then from there, I'm like, who else will they like? Who else will I like to be around in this little microcosm I'm making? And from there, it's like, all right, great. Who has this dietary restriction or who likes this kind of food? Then there were also times where it's like, I want to cook something. And so, okay, well, I'm going to do this and I'll invite the people I think who will enjoy it. Like, you can really get at it any which way. It's just about having an intention behind how you're building the evening.
And what are the things that don't matter to you?
Flower bouquets, decorations. You have a table filled with gorgeous food on platters. To me, that's the decor. Formality of cloth napkins. Like, all right, put out squares of paper towels. Like, you don't have enough plates, use nice bamboo disposable ones. Like, if you don't have enough wine glasses, it's like you use nice disposable ones. Like, it's all like, I don't think there should be any formality to that. If that is something that brings you joy and as part of your expression, I'm so for it. If it's something that brings you stress, leave it behind.
Talk to me about challah. Why is challah such an important personal anchor for you?
I'm very like spiritual. And so for me, it's, and I think about this a lot when we think of like the Western Wall in Jerusalem and it's this holy site. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's this connection because it was part of the temple. And for me, it's actually because it's this physical thing that our entire community physically touches and prays into and pours in positive intentional thought into, which is what supercharges it energetically. And the same thing is with challah, where you are truly creating this intention around this is the anchor for the gathering of people. And you all stand around the table and pray and extend gratitude for this bread. And then you've poured all of that positive intentional thought and prayer into this loaf and you eat it. And to me, there is something incredibly physically altering on an energy level about doing just that.
That's so beautiful. You're talking about Israel and having visited there. I know you were there during the war with Iran in June.
Yes.
Did you go to Israel as a kid, or were Israel visits more part of your?
No, I didn't go. I hadn't gone until birthright. It wasn't until a few years ago. My mother had never been, and I surprised her, and I took her and my sister on a trip to Israel, and then I sent them home and stayed for Pride. But my mom cried every day. She was so and she loved it. I have friends there. I have community there. I think it's something that's so integral to me as a cook. It's so integral to me as a gay person, as a member of my community. I think there is this degree of you're there and you can feel the connection to a tribe. And that doesn't mean that I agree with everything. And there's incredible difficulty with being there at all moments. And yet I'm someone who loves the challenge of wrestling with a concept that I know and love, then stepping away from it.
Well said. I have some quick questions for you. Rapid fire.
Let's do it.
Your favorite food to make?
Challah.
Favorite food to eat?
Chocolate chip cookies. I really love them.
What's the best Jewish staple in leftover form?
Brisket. Brisket is the best for leftovers, especially because even if all the meat's gone, I use all of the sauce to make pasta.
What's your favorite Jewish holiday just in terms of the food?
Passover.
Going back to the brisket?
Brisket, the matzo ball soup, even the gefilte fish. I love all of it. The charoset. Oh, amazing.
And what do you think is the best Jewish food contribution to the world?
Schmaltz.
That was an unexpected pick.
Yeah, I think that's it. I would say that because it's so unique.
What's your go-to Shabbat menu?
It depends. It varies depending on the day. I would say I have a roast chicken. It's called winter chicken dinner. And I love just doing like a couple of roast chickens. There's never a time in which a roast chicken dinner doesn't just like wow everyone. So that's always going to be what I go to.
Okay, so as people are preparing for Thanksgiving, you've given them a full menu, so they're set in that way. What advice do you have for people putting together a Thanksgiving table?
I would say the best part is like everything kind of be prepped in advance, and the turkey should be kind of like resting at least like an hour before people come. So if you do this right, and I have an incredible recipe in the book, it's a full menu of Thanksgiving recipes with your grocery list, with your timeline, so that you can have everything prepped out. So really like people arrive and you're just like reheating things in the oven and serving. That to me is the magic of Thanksgiving, is having it all done. And so you get to be just like really present with your family, get a little drunk, get a little high, whatever you want, and have some really great food.
Jake, this has been such a treat. Thank you for bringing not just your recipes, but your generosity and your joy into the world of food. I know our listeners heading into Thanksgiving are going to appreciate your recipes, hearing from you, and be inspired not just by what you cook, but by how you gather people. So thank you for being with us today.
Oh my God, such a joy. Love chatting.
Thank you so much for joining us today for the 5 books. Our guest today was Jake Cohen talking about his new cookbook, Dinner Party Animal. You can find a link to the book and all the others Jake discussed in our show notes. If you've read one of the wonderful books recommended on our show, we'd love to hear about it. Drop us a comment on Instagram @5bookspod or in our email team@5bookspod.org. If you'd like an email reminder to keep you up to date with new episodes, plus links to all the books we discussed and some other goodies directly in your inbox, you can sign up for our newsletter in the show notes or on our website, 5bookspod.org, where you can also find transcripts for all episodes. I'm Tali Rosenblatt Cohen. Our producer is Odelia Rubin. Editorial and website support from Amelia Merrill. Music by Dove Rosenblatt and Blue Dot Sessions. Art by Elad Lifshitz at the Dove Abramson Studio. Thanks especially to the Jewish Book Council.